Today is Friday, January 25th, 2019. My name is Edna Sussman. I'm a reference librarian at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library. We're interviewing Vincent P. Greco, a World War II Army veteran, as part of our Veterans Testimonial Project and in collaboration with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Thank you so much, Vincent, for your service and for participating in our project. Vincent, where and when were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York on June 29th, 1925.
And who were your parents, their names, and what did they do?
My father's name was Joseph. My mother's name was Rose. My mother was a housewife, a wonderful housewife. My father came over from Italy when he was 17 years old, and he taught himself to speak English and write English, went to school, and he became a carpenter foreman for one of the biggest contractors in the city of New York.
So he arrived, he wasn't with your mom yet. He arrived in New York, and he wasn't married yet.
No. Then he at that time I wasn't around.
Right.
I can't quite remember.
Right. So did you have siblings? What were their names and genders?
I have a daughter, Rosemary, who lives nearby, and she comes in and she keeps checking out her mother, who has dementia now, every day to see if everything is okay. And I have a granddaughter who is now a school teacher in the East Meadow School District.
Nice. What about any brothers and sisters that you might have had?
I have two sisters. Both of them are younger than I, and one is in Florida, and one is living in Staten Island, and we keep in touch with each other.
What are their names?
My sister in Staten Island was Margaret, and my sister in Florida was Elizabeth.
Were either of them in the military at any time?
No.
No. So what were you doing before you entered the service?
Before I entered the service, I was going to college with a CC. I took a test, and I was accepted for CCNY, and I was going to school on the 23rd Street, I believe, in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So I was a schoolboy at the time.
Did you finish your degree there?
No, unfortunately, Uncle Sam got into the picture, and it wasn't a matter of anybody trying to volunteer, because a week after I was 18, I had the order I was drafted.
Really?
And a month after, I was in the Army.
So you didn't get a choice of which branch to...
No, at the time at my age at the time, we weren't too selective, no.
So what happened when you left for training camp and during your early days of training in the service?
At first, when I was inducted, I went to Camp Upton, believe it or not, on Long Island, and which was a very big, it was a training, not a training camp, a separation, and people were taken from that point, dressed and clothed, and then went on their merry way to their permanent assignments. Mm-hmm. And I ended up in Fort Benning, Georgia. Mm-hmm. I took the officers' basic infantry training there, and which took in all the aspects of being in the infantry, mm-hmm. reading maps and firing and this and that and the other thing. After that had happened, then that was what we call basic training. Mm-hmm. And after basic training...
Well, how long was the basic training?
Basic training, I think, was only 12 weeks.
Okay.
And after basic training, then you went to... it's a little bit odd, but I'll see if I can describe it. When we went and we were screened in the Army, somehow or other, they went by your capabilities, your mental capabilities, and certain people were selected to be officers and ran through a training program where they would be engineers. Of course, there was a shortage of engineers. I think Eleanor Roosevelt started it. So from Fort Benning, we went to the college. I went to a college.
Oh, where was that?
I went to the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, for engineering. We were cadets, but we were in the Army. And was doing I was doing very well. And at that time, at a particular time, they had the invasion of Europe.
What year are we in now?
Excuse me?
What year was that when you...
1943, I guess, 1944. Maybe 1943, it escapes me. But anyhow, at that point, they needed bodies. They needed people with guns. They didn't want college students. So, but we took combat training. That was our initial training. And we were infantrymen to begin with. So as a result of that, the program was disbanded, and we were assigned to an infantry outfit. And I ended up in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we were assigned to the 100th Infantry Division. And at that point, we took additional training as unit training, because prior to that was just individual training, as they said.
But you didn't continue then with the engineering part?
The engineering part was gone. We were grunts. That's the word. We were grunts.
Oh, okay.
And we took our training, and we went through all the aspects of what had to be done in combat. And then we were assigned. We were shipped overseas, and we went over to, I believe it was Camp Kilmer, and we got on a...
Where was that?
Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
Okay. From
North Carolina, we came to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. From there, we were loaded onto transports, Army transports.
Ships?
Ships. And we ended up going to Marseille, France at that point. It took us 15 days to get there because they were having trouble with the submarines, and they diverted the ships out of the normal lanes to avoid them. And we ended up in Marseille, France.
Yes.
And at that point, we took and we stayed there a couple of days. It wasn't very nice. It was kind of muddy and rainy.
But you didn't stay on the ship. You stayed in.
No, we got off the ship and we walked to a staging area, they call it. And when they got everybody assembled, we got on trucks. And we run up the, I think it was the Rhone Valley, they call, to the point where we would be disembark. And at that point, we did that, and we relieved the 45th Infantry Division, who held the line at that point. But they were pulled out. I believe they were pulled out because they needed them in the northern part of the Bulge at that time. So we took over that part. It was the coldest winter in 20 years.
Really?
It was just a problem just trying to keep from freezing to death. We dig holes, and we cover them with logs and cover them with dirt, and we go on patrol. We had at the time we didn't have any really winter clothes.
Oh my God!
No, we did not. We had regular Army shoes, and they used to freeze on us, and you couldn't put them on until they got warmed up. You put them in your body to keep warm. But anyhow.
But you slept in the holes to keep.
Absolutely.
No, there were no barracks or anything.
No. This was the front. This was the front lines.
Front lines.
You dug a foxhole, and if there was more than one fella, you'd get a bunker and you'd cut logs and throw logs, because if you put logs on them with so much dirt, you could almost get a direct hit with artillery, and you'd have some kind of safety. But it was cold.
Wow.
And
how did you eat? I mean,
as far as food went, we had what they call K rations, which are combat rations, and what they were the size of a Cracker Jack box, and it was enough subsistence to keep you going. It was nothing really that you would want to eat. And we'd get a ration, and we'd get 3 rations. One would be for breakfast, one for dinner, one for supper. They were in boxes. You carry them in your pack. And then we go out on patrols, and we got into some firefights at the time, but it was cold, and it was the darkest place I ever saw. It was this particular place was in the Vosges Mountains, where, as an example, I had a watch that was given to me, my mom, but had a luminous dial on it, and you could see it 10 feet away. And it had to a point where you had to turn it so it turned inward to you, so nobody could see the reflection. That's how dark it was.
Wow.
You could put your hand in front of your face, you couldn't see anything. And we would go out. I was in my classification, I was classified as a mortar gunner on a 60-millimeter mortar. But at that time, they started taking people out of our group and sending them up north because there was a shortage when the bulge went through. So as a result, we were kind of undermanned. So then,
as a result, what was that?
Undermanned.
Undermanned. Okay.
So we, as far as being selective, being a mortar gunner, they needed riflemen, and so I was a rifleman.
Did you know you had learned all that, different artillery and different guns, how to shoot them in training?
Well, yes. When we were in training, we were taught naturally how to handle a rifle.
Yeah.
And then also I was trained with a mortar gunner, which is a tube, 60-millimeter mortar, with that. And we set off demolition charges and what they call a bazooka, which was a rocket-propelled anti-tank gun. We had the training, and we had the training also for first aid. Somebody got hurt.
Did people around you get hurt now and then? I mean,
well, yes. Matter of fact, they were getting shot, or when we got involved in the Germans would shoot us with their artillery pieces or their own mortars, and people would get killed from that. Then another item they had there at the time, the Germans set out a lot of what they call booby traps, and we lost maybe 3 or 4 people. Yes, all you had to do was touch a wire, and there were other things other things that would set them off. And we were always exposed to mortar fire. And I'd go out on patrol and come back and just say, thank goodness I made it.
Yeah.
I made the trip that one particular morning. It was cold. I keep repeating it was cold. It was cold.
So it's like November, December you were started out?
Throughout the winter.
The whole winter, yeah.
We landed, I think we landed in October, and we went through that whole winter. It was cold.
So were you stationed mainly in France, or where else did you?
This was at one time there was a line they call a marginal line, which the French had built to keep the Germans out of their country, but that when they lost, now the Germans took them over, and they had these fortresses that were actually in line to protect each other, to keep us out. This one particular place was called Bitch, B-I-T-C-H-E.
That's the name of the town?
That was the name of the town. And the town was really not a town, it was a fortress. And they had places where they had, as I remember, I should remember the name, it was Friedenberg Farms. It was a farm. If you looked at this place, it was a farm. There was cows walking around, but it had disappearing torrents of guns that would come up and fire and then go down and back into the ground. But it was designed, it was disguised as a farm, so you people would know what it was.
Yeah. Was he part of the military, or was his farm and he?
No. This was the German part of the Germans when we went out on patrol. This is in the German areas. Mm-hmm. See, we didn't stay in our area. We went on patrol. We had to go into their area and see where they were, so we could let people know where they were. But anyhow, that continued. And then to bypass that, we had, as I say, there wasn't enough people to go around, so we had to fill in for others. So I was selected to be in a forward outpost. This was at this time. A forward outpost was the point where the Germans were there and you were here, but there was no man's land. In order to keep track of what they were doing, we would send outposts and set them there and tie them in with communication with the captains and the hierarchy, to put it that way, so they would know what was going on with their eyes and ears. And it happened at that particular time. It was my turn. We did 2 days on, 2 days off. It was my turn to be there. And this happened on New Year's Eve. I believe it was 1945. I was on guard duty at 11 o'clock. I think it was around 11 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Germans had decided they were going to have this Operation Northwind. They were going to drive the whole unit back and come to assist the people in the northern part. And I got hit with a piece of shrapnel. Wow! And so I was on guard duty. And
were you alone there, or did you have a partner also with you on guard duty, or it was just by yourself?
No, I had one man. Another fellow was with me. But we had a telephone with communication with the captain in the headquarters, and we had to report to them what was going on. And as I say, they started shooting at us, and all of a sudden the line got cut. Ooh. So we lost our communications, and we were in between. And it was my turn. I had to do it. I had to go out on the fire, find the wire, splice it together, and luckily not to get back in a hole.
But you were shot at that point?
No, I did. I got hit in the arm with a piece of shrapnel. But it wasn't that bad. So now the Germans, or as they say, were on the offensive. They were coming around behind us. So we were there all alone. And
how far was the rest of your unit? Oh, how far away was the rest of your unit?
Oh, about 500 yards, maybe 800 yards behind us. But we were alone. And as they came around behind us, we asked our commander, "Let's get out of here. We're being surrounded." And we were told, "You got to stay there. We need you. We need your information." So we stayed there and we kept relaying the information. Then finally got to a point where I was on the phone, and I heard the officer say, "They're outside. They're throwing hand grenades." He says, "Hey, you guys, get your butts out of there."
Oh wow!
So at that time, we grabbed whatever we had. We went back to where our company was. They got hit pretty bad. They were gone. So
they were all gone?
They were gone. They had to pull out temporarily because they were overwhelmed. So
what was the name of your group? Just the 100th Infantry?
This is the 100th Infantry Division. I was in Company C, 399th infantry regiment. And so luckily we found our way back. At 19 years old, you could do a lot of things, you know. We found our way back, and several miles beyond us was the company was regrouping. But the one thing that really was a little scary was the fact that at that time the Germans were dropping spies behind our lines, and they were dressed in American uniforms.
Oh my!
And also at that time they had what they called the Malvern massacre, where they killed 300 of our prisoners. So the word was out, and then our guys had itchy trigger fingers. So if you can picture walking into a town with somebody that has an itchy trigger finger, and they challenge you for the password, that if you don't give the right password, you're dead.
Wow.
Well, anyhow, luckily, I remembered it, and hold back a minute.
What?
Can we hold it a minute?
No.
Oh,
It's
okay,
fine,
continue?
it's fine. Yeah,
Oh, all right, it's all right to continue. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, so anyhow, they regrouped. We regrouped, and then we went on then our outfit went on the offensive. And from that point, we went to Ludwigshafen, which was in the northern direction. And we took Ludwigshafen. I went out on a house-to-house patrol, clearing the house a couple of times.
That was in Germany then?
We're in Germany.
Germany.
Then from Ludwigshafen, we went to Mannheim, which was further north. We fought our way there, and we went through across that bridge. I don't remember the name of the bridge, but we went through the Siegfried line. That was their main line of resistance.
Were you all on foot? I mean, or how were you transporting yourselves?
No. At that time, we were riding on the tanks.
Ah.
So we were riding. I'm sorry. Yes, I should have told you that. Yes, we were riding on tanks, and we went through the Siegfried line. And there was a bridge that was just about carried the tanks that we went across, as I remember. Anyhow.
You know about how many men? About how many soldiers were in the group?
Oh no, this is the company. This is the whole big group. It was the company.
How much is that? Like 100 guys, or?
Oh, I couldn't count them. I would think it was the whole division.
Okay.
A regiment of the division. Anyhow, we got our way through the Siegfried line, and then, as I remember, the intent was to capture a town called Strasbourg, which was in the Alps, and we were on the road down to that Strasbourg, and the purpose was to cut off the Germans' retreat that were coming through from Italy. And we rode on the tanks for I don't know the time, and all of a sudden we got into artillery fire. They were shooting at us artillery, and we were told, get off the tanks, we don't want to expose them to fire. So
go where? How do you get out of the line of fire if you're not in the tank?
No. Well, they have special shells that can penetrate the steel.
Oh.
So they didn't want to expose them to fire. So we were told. So we got on the road, and we're walking like we would ordinarily do. And all of a sudden, they started dropping the shells on what they call bracketing fire, which is you fire one over, one short, and you break it up, and you're on target. We told, get off the road, get into the fields, get out of here. So I went over into one of the fields, and unfortunately, I went right into the center of what they were firing.
Oy. Wow.
The shells were exploding, were going off all around us. My buddy alongside him, he got killed.
Oh.
He got hit. You try and make yourself as low to the ground as possible, but the ground is frozen. But I heard this shell go off. I heard it land, rather. and I hit the ground, and my pot fell off. That's my helmet. And then I looked up, and there was the shell in the ground, 10 feet in front of me. It didn't explode.
Whoa.
I was very upset. Got up. Finally, there was a little bit lull in the fire, and we went in a cluster of woods with these friends of mine. When we got there, that was not the right place to be.
Why?
The shell hit me, threw me in the air, and both my legs, and hit my friend in the chest, and killed the other guy, the other fellow that was with us, and they couldn't pick us up because we were on the fire.
Oh.
So we laid there, and luckily, after a while, the people that were firing, it was an ambush, were taken care of, and I was able to get a corpsman come along. I remember being in a stretcher, and they put me into the ambulance, and they took me to a field hospital. And from the field hospital, that was really the end of the war for me.
So you were conscious. You didn't lose consciousness.
I was conscious at that time, yes. And they gave us first aid, and then they put me on a C-47. They flew me to, I think Nancy was the closest town to a regular hospital.
Is that in Germany? Where was that?
No, this was now we're in France. We're coming back.
Oh, okay.
They flew me into France. And when I got there, I don't remember too much about it, except I ended up with, from laying there so long, I got gas gangrene from it. And I was in the ward, and they were afraid I was going to contaminate the people, so they put me in a room by myself. But I survived. If it wasn't for penicillin, at the time, I would have been gone.
How long were you in the hospital?
2 months, a couple of months, 2 months.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And after it was all over, I find out I was a very lucky guy. That the surgeon who operated on me, all I remember was by my bedside, and he had somebody with a Purple Heart that gave me. And he was a surgeon. He says to me, "You're very lucky." He says, "If it would have been any lower, we couldn't cut your legs off. If it was any lower than what it was, you had to live or lose you." I beat him.
Yeah, you did. Thank
beat him.
goodness.
I beat him.
Wow.
And after, I forget how long it was, I got on a hospital ship.
Now, did your parents know that you were so severely injured?
My parents? No.
No.
No, they didn't.
I mean, were you prior to being was there any way you could communicate with your family before?
Well, we used to send letters when we could. We would send a letter, give it to the company clerk, and he would pass it through. But in a case like that, no, I wasn't able to do anything. I wasn't able to do anything.
They probably wondered why they didn't hear from you. No?
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. But anyhow, I came back to the States, and
What year was that? You remember?
1945. The end of 1945. End of 1945.
So it was right before the war ended that you came home?
Right before the war with Japan ended. The war with Germany ended while I'm sorry. The war in Germany ended while I was in the hospital.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
So and I was able to, I was shipped home.
How, if you hadn't been injured, how much longer were you supposed to serve then?
Well, we have what they call my division was earmarked for occupation therapy. Was the part of the Army of Occupation. So somebody had to police the area. So I probably would have been here another year or so.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
When they shipped you home, did you then go to an American hospital?
Yes, I went to Tilton General Hospital in South Carolina. I went to that hospital, and then finally I got to a point where I didn't have enough points to get discharged. So they gave me a temporary assignment until such time as I could get discharged.
How long were you in the American hospital?
In a hospital and recuperation about a month.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But
You were able, once you left the hospital, you were all healed? It was all, you were good?
no, I couldn't walk too good. Couldn't walk too well. That's why they put me on temporary assignment until such I could get enough strength in order to get this discharged.
Where did they send you for that assignment, temporary assignment?
Well, actually, they sent me. I was stationed in Camp Drum. I was sent to Camp Drum in near Watertown. I was part of the cadre there. I was given a desk job
Oh, I
until
see.
such time as I had no points, and then I went to a separation center after that, and then I was discharged.
Discharged. Were there other places you were in Europe that that we haven't, that you didn't share yet, that you remember?
Now, the biggest thing was, as they say, when they had the New Year's attack, in that period, that was it.
That's when you were injured.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you deal with the artillery coming everywhere? How do you protect yourself?
Be elsewhere.
Be elsewhere.
Well, what you do is you throw yourself down on the ground and you make yourself as low, give it as low a profile as you can. That's all you can do.
Wow.
And say a few prayers besides.
And meanwhile, you're carrying your equipment and your.
Oh yeah.
Must have been heavy.
Well, I had a rifle and I used to carry a 60mm mortar. I would take a guess at say 40, 50 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, in actuality, they had a system where when you were going to go into a firefight and they knew something was coming up, they'd set up something by the side of the road, and you take your heavy equipment, not your armament or anything, but like your blanket, your blanket roll or whatever it was, you throw it in a pile.
So you didn't have to carry it.
Yeah, and then when if it was over, if you were still alive, there was a pile that you take another one out and put it on.
Oh, I see. Wow. Oh. Were you afraid, Vincent? I mean, how do you have to run in and do what you have to do, but.
Well, what happens is you are. There's no question about it. You're scared. But you know what? Once the adrenaline starts to go, you forget being scared because you have to do what you have to do.
Wow.
Because if you're going to get, I hate to say this, but if you're going to be killed doing nothing, you might as well be killed doing something.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
It would be a waste. But that, and it was it was a very simple thing. People talk about going through war and stuff. Why do you want to kill the enemy? It's a very simple thing in my mind. The reason you want to kill him is you don't want him to kill you. When it comes down to that point, you know.
Yeah, but you were all young guys. You know, it's
Yeah.
a shame. But anyway, so when you came back, how were you received by your family and friends?
Oh no, I was received wholeheartedly. Did everything they could to help me.
Good.
And it ended up, I tried to go back to college, but I was a little too mixed up. I couldn't do it.
From the war, you think?
Yeah, definitely.
But you had only done college for 1 year, right? Before.
Yes.
Did you have a thought of what you wanted to study? Or?
Well, actually, at that time, it was difficult for me to grasp what it was. I simply just went to work. I got a job, I went to work. My father was in construction, so I got a job with his employer. At that time, it was $40 a week, but it was something. And I was, and I stayed with this company a long time, and I learned how the construction process by actually being there and talking with engineers. And I got a construction education, And eventually I was building schools and hospitals and
Wow.
housing projects, and I was the project manager on $50-60 million projects,
Wow.
and until I retired.
That's amazing. That's great. Did you enjoy it?
It was the kind of work where you had to be, you had to think about it all the time. Yes, when I look back at it, being in construction of that type, it gives you a feeling of accomplishment, because from one day to the next day, something changes. A week later, it changes more. A month later, it changes. And a year later, you got a building up, and you turn around and say, "Gee whiz, look what I did."
Amazing. Yeah. Nice.
That's
Very nice.
wonderful.
How was it when you came back adjusting to civilian life for you?
No, I adjusted pretty well.
Yeah.
Pretty well. They didn't have any PSTD, whatever it is, at the time.
PTSD.
You kind of worked out how to work it out yourself. And the way I worked it out is I went to work, and I put my mind to something else, and eventually it just, because I used to have dreams and all of that, but that passed.
Really?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, but my mind was occupied with something else, you know.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
Yes, I'm one of the elders of the American Legion Post 342. I belong to the disabled veterans. I'm a lifetime member of the disabled veterans. I belong to the members of the Battle of the Bulge, and there was another one I can't remember.
Yeah, you have to tell us about that.
Excuse me?
You didn't tell us about that. The Battle of the Bulge.
Yes, they had an organization. They had a hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello.
How are you?
No, but I mean, when you were over there, you were involved in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes, yes.
You didn't tell us about that.
I belong to that group.
Yeah, but when you were serving in Europe, you were in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
you didn't tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, that was the time when I told you, when I was alone in the forward outpost.
Oh, that was part of that.
That was it.
Oh,
that
I
was
see.
Operation Northwind, which was a part of the Bulge, the southern part of it. It's in the.
Oh, I see.
Over there. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, how do you think your wartime experiences affected your life?
Made me self-reliant. In order to survive, you had to be self-reliant, and I carried that with me through my whole life.
That's good. What about some life lessons you learned from the military?
What I learned from the military, I think I think it was the example for my life. I do things as the best I can, and I try to analyze and then do things in the best thing I can, and how to survive. I learned that. To this day, I'm still learning how to survive.
That's great.
Because there are other things besides physical things that happen to you. Right now, I'm in the middle of we're at odd end at this town that I live in, and I've had some bad experiences with them, and I've managed to come out unscathed by using, as I say, my will to survive. And I'm at that point right now, even at my age right now, I have a big disagreement with this town. They've done something that is not right, and it's affecting me, and it's going to affect my family, and I'm standing up to it alone, as I've done before. Some time ago, I don't know if this is part of the subject that you want.
That's fine. Whatever you want to share, it's fine.
When I first moved into this area, I had a house in Lynbrook. I sold it, and everything I owned, because I decided I wanted to live on the water. And at the time, I bought this place so I could use it as a retirement, as they're doing right now. My family could run it. Somehow or other, this town decided to go into the build an electrical plant. This electrical plant, you can look out the window, it's 400 feet away from here. They took the biggest diesels, 10,000 horsepower diesel engines, and put them there and burned raw fuel. Oh. And it was an embarrassment for anyone to challenge what they did. But with my engineering background, that I have, physical engineering, I stood up to them. And as a result of my standing up to them and being vocal in my defense of my family and my property, they decided I was like a deficit to them. And they took all kind of legal aspects to get me out of here. However, I pursued it, and I stayed with it. I had some legal help. I fought with them. And finally, I got them to shut the plant down.
Wow, wow.
The plant right now is laying dormant. However, in order to do it, taking the aspect of the military that you're talking about, I found that there was an alternate. Instead of pursuing it with as an alone, I organized a group, and we found out that there was hydro. It may be complicated. Hydroelectric power was available, but the people in the village didn't want it. So we embarked on a program to get them to accept it. As a result, what happened, 90% at this time of the electric burn in the village of Freeport is hydroelectric power.
Wow, because of you.
The diesel engines do not run anymore. They were shut down by the state of Shed in New York.
Wow.
And I was responsible to get it for them. And there's some other things, some other physical things around here. There's a roadway as you come up with your car that's blocked off, which I believe should not be there by law, and it's another legal entanglement. However, I'm 93, but I'm still going to do it.
Good for you.
I think that's the end of it.
That's
all
great.
I can tell you.
That's great.
This is my home. This is my roots, and I'm staying here.
You were born in New York.
Brooklyn.
Yeah. Vincent, how do you think your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
War has been going on since we were born. Emery, would you hold off, please?
I'm in it.
Yeah, I'll be done soon. Okay, thank you. It's an evil. I think as long as people on Earth, there will be some kind of war, you might call them something else, disagreements, and people will get frustrated, and there's no justification. People should discuss what the differences, but unfortunately, that's not the way the world is today.
No.
You know?
No. Do you have a message that you might like to leave to future generations who might watch this interview? Anything you'd like to share, add?
What I feel about it is that my own feelings. We do need a military. It's unfortunate that we need a military, but if we don't have a military, everything we've ever worked for and tried to achieve has gone by the board. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can say. That's all I can say.
Okay. Anything we haven't covered? Anything you'd like to add?
No, not really. I think he's done a fine job, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you so much, Vincent. Really appreciate all your memories and your service. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Okay.